The red line is up and it says meeting is now streaming on YouTube. Welcome everyone. Let's wait till I can see it. Once I see it, I'll do the original open and then I'll come back and cut this out.
No Lyndon this evening.
No Lyndon this evening. Is up and it says, oh, there we are. Yay. Okay. YouTube. Hi, everybody. Welcome, everyone. Let's wait till I can see it. Welcome, everyone. And thank you for being here. This is another Living Theosophy UinDhi gathering circle that we do on the last Wednesday of the month. And we have quite a lineup today. These are some familiar faces. You'll recognize the one and only Taposhri Ganguly is with us. She's going to be our chair tonight. We have Kidgell is with us, as well as Charlie Bannon. All the links for all of these beautiful people will be in the description down below. We invite you to participate in the chat. If you have questions and comments, we are simply students on the path. That's it. We are simply students of these ancient universal principles. And we'd like to share with you some answers to your questions and comments and take questions and comments. And we have questions and comments as well. So let's hand it over to our chair, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Dr. Taposhri Ganguly.
Thank you so much, Anne. I always say this is the channel that made me a superstar. And I'm always happy to be back here. Welcome, everyone. The first things first, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you get an update whenever the new video is uploaded or whenever we go live, so that you get the notifications right on time. So welcome, everyone. And today we have a collection of questions which have come through TikTok and YouTube channel of Living Theosophy. So I've picked a few of my favorites and I'm going to go around the Zoom room. I don't know who wants to go with this, but this was on one of the TikTok videos that Anne did on Mayalpa, which is what HPB said, it's Earth is hell. And there was a comment which says, this makes no sense. How the hell is Earth hell? Earth is perfect. So let's start with you, Gary. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, thank you, Tats.
Sorry, just so much fun. His face. No pressure.
Okay, no. The wisdom teachings describe various planes or levels of consciousness, ranging from pure spirit to dense matter. They also inform us that, in essence, we are monads or divine sparks. Our spiritual nature, due to its purity of vibration, cannot descend below its own level of consciousness. So it adopts structures or mechanisms which operate on the levels below it. As spiritual entities, our purpose is to undergo this long evolutionary sojourn as a means of developing what we call spiritual staying power. This referring to our ability to demonstrate and radiate spiritual qualities regardless of the constraints which we are facing. Now, the earth is our learning ground. It's the densest and most challenging of the planes of consciousness because we are most restricted here. In terms of calling the earth hell, I mean, we create our own reality. Yes, it's the most constricting, although in terms of the wisdom teachings, I would say what would equate with hell would be the lowest levels of the astral or emotional plane, where really gross human emotions exist. And bearing in mind that we leave our physical bodies at the end of incarnation and spend a certain amount of time on the astral plane before vacating our astral body onto the mental and devashan. But basically, the lowest level of the astral plane, which would correspond with the core of our earth, therefore you would get the Catholic concept of hellfire. People of a very dense vibration, what you would say the nastiest human beings gravitate to that particular level. So sorry to contradict the earth is hell slightly. I can see that it is the most challenging, yes. So that's all I've got to say on the matter, and hopefully someone else will now take up the baton.
Yeah, thank you. And let's hear your thoughts on this. This came on your TikTok video. So first of all, how does it feel like when something like that pops up as a question right below your video?
Oh my God. The Mialba one was an interesting one. Really quick, Gary, very, very well said. Thank you for contributing. If you are watching this with us, and there's a few of you there, if you'd like to comment, we'd like to have your thoughts as well, because it's a circle. So we're with you. There's no one at a podium here today. It's all about all of us. So you're certainly welcome to contribute. That one, I was thinking of what was I going to do today? And I've always remembered when I voiced the voice of the silence, which is up here on this channel for free. It is a free audio book for you, which is one of the most powerful and important theosophical texts, which can seem like a very abstract poem of all time, but it is a very powerful text. And in the glossary is where I got this, when it talks about somebody returns Mialba, and they're talking about Mialba. Where is Mialba? Where is this place? And the definition in the voice of the silence, it talks about Mialba is any man-inhabited planet. This is hell, pertinently called hell. And it can be any man-inhabited planet because there's no greater suffering. No, Dante couldn't come up with anything as horrific as what we do to each other while we're here. And I thought, this is not going to go over very well at all with the TikTok crowd. No one is going to know what I'm talking about. And all I did was simply quote the definition, and it took off. What is so amazing is that people understood. There were lots of people coming in saying, I've always thought this is, an ancient Gnostic teaching. Where is this coming from? Where did you get this information? This makes sense. The amount of this makes senses coming through was so inspiring. Now, these are people that are taking in the theosophical teachings, but they don't have to be called a theosophist. And theosophy doesn't have to be called theosophy either. It's just the ancient universal truths, these ancient science, ancient knowledge. So when I was thinking about that, I find it very comforting. I just think that it does make sense. It does make sense because what we do here, our inhumanity to man and all other species, but it makes sense because the suffering is felt here in the physical world. However, there is also that self-awareness that we have where there is much joy and there is much overcoming ourselves and there's much hope and there's much love and there's much happiness here. So this contrast, this duality, it just made sense. So anyway, sharing that short theosophical TikTok and seeing there's thousands of people that came in for that. And I expected to be eaten alive, but it wasn't. They got it and they understood and they wanted to know more. And I was very inspired by that. So anyway, I find it comforting. I find that concept comforting, actually. Is that my noise? I apologize. There's something, don't know, it's weird. Do you hear that? Where's that coming from?
I think it's my kids. Just a moment, please.
Oh, it's your babies. Oh, okay. That's okay. That's okay. No worries. I didn't want it to seem like when I was sharing that, because you just don't hit them with something like that, but I did. And I thought, okay, these are the masses who have never experienced Theosophy. The majority of these people have never even heard of these teachings or the voice of the silence. But they all understood and they got it. There were a few people that were frightened by it. There are a few people that were angry and wanted to disagree, but a majority of the people, majority of them said this makes sense. So I find it comforting because it gives me hope that this is certainly something that we can transcend and help to make it better than it once was, to stop the hellish behavior, in other words.
There was one comment right after that which said, my grandmother died for a few minutes, came back claiming this was hell. My grandfather also passed for a little, did not want to be back in here. So pretty much people agreeing with the fact that they don't want to come back here. Charlie, what are your thoughts on this?
Just a couple of things, really. Of course, my kids make a lot of noise in the background when I'm live, and then I tangle up my wires and everything. Such is life. Okay, so just to tie in those things. Okay, so hell, in my understanding, is suffering. Okay, there's a lot of beauty in this world. Okay, I mean, you've seen my videos. I love nature. I love to be out in nature. Always have, always will. And there's a lot of goodness in this world. I remember in New York in 2014, somebody in front of me was crossing the street, and her heel broke, and she fell, twisted her ankle, couldn't get up. And just the short version of the story is that a lot of strangers just came together to help this person across the road. And I was thinking, well, we don't even know each other. And even the people in the cars, like the light had turned green for them, they all waited patiently. So that was such an example of oneness and goodness. But there's a hell of a lot of suffering in this world. I mean, do you know what it's like to be suicidal? Because I do. Do you know what depression is like? Because I do. Do you know what it's like to be homeless? I do. And I've chosen the professions that I have because I've been fortunate enough to find my way largely out of the hell that I was in. Like, there's still suffering. One of the most horrific situations I heard of was a guy whose family were getting ready to come to Ireland. They were coming from a refugee situation, and they looked around, couldn't find their son, a little boy. He had been kidnapped and taken into slavery. Like, he would be an adult now, but don't tell me that's not hell. And then you got sexual abuse, you got physical abuse, you got domestic violence, you got wars. I mean, I grew up in this country, and not far from where I grew up, about 80 miles down the road, there were people killing each other every day for 30 years. And people on both sides now say it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it, and we never want to go back to that again. But the potential, I mean, at the end of World War I, people said there would never be another war because it was so terrible. But there's been so many wars since then. So, and that potential is still there, unfortunately, to fight and hurt each other. And that to me is hell. Now, being Buddhist about it for a moment, the Buddha says there is suffering. They say there's there's the cause of suffering, which they say is desire. There is the end of suffering, which the Buddha calls nirvana, or you could call it heaven. It's the same thing. And then there's the path that we need to travel to get to the end of suffering. Okay, so that's open to us all. And as you may know, at this stage, I know a couple of near-death experiencers, and I listen to them, and all these universal principles that I've learned about over the years. Here I am speaking to people who have direct experience, you know, and those that come back, I think 7% of those who come back actually commit suicide because it's so difficult here compared to where they've been is so beautiful. And those who stay, there's a long reintegration process that can last for years because this place is suffering. And like when you read about hell in the Bible or in the Quran or whatever sacred text, that's symbolic, that's metaphorical for the world that we live in. But there is hope because we do have a way to rise above this suffering. And as the Bhagavad Gita says, even a little progress is freedom from fear. So it's always about freedom from fear. So yeah, I guess that's my brief answer to that one.
Very well said.
Yeah, thank you. That's very beautifully put. And coming to we talked about Buddhism, and there was a comment which said, Buddhism believes hell is a temporary condition with the exception of avicii, which is permanent. So why bother? What am I missing here? Was the question by this individual. What is this individual missing?
Is that directed at all of us?
Yeah, to
Gary's
all of
you. Gary?
Well, if I could come in there, in terms, well, all of the great religions and the wisdom teachings talk about spiritual essence. And life here is about building a link to that and therefore expressing it and becoming an agent of the divine. Easier said than done, of course. And in terms of what Charlie said, I mean, yes, man's inhumanity to man, using the term man in its true sense, man as a thinker, you know, it's absolutely appalling. And this idea of Gnosticism, or a Manichaean view where spirit good, matter intrinsically evil, esoteric teachings have moved on since then. We have realized that this is a learning ground, and that includes dealing with everything, all the dangers inherent within the human psyche. Carl Jung made that point before the outbreak of World War II. That is where the problems reside, and that is what we have to deal with as a collective, as humanity. I'm not one for sweeping statements, but I feel two key issues here. One is education of people as to what they essentially are, and the other, of course, is making them aware that they have to use their will, align the will to the will of the divine, not my will be done, but thy will be done. I think if we look at history and all the various wars, it tends to be certain elites with powerful designs then manipulating a lot of people by one means or another. And then we have these appalling situations which just generate more and more karma.
Karma, yes.
Yeah, there's a comment in the chat from Stephen who said, Buddha said that hell was the first two noble truths. He said that our suffering was our own hell. He taught that we are creative consciousness, that we created our suffering because of karma. And there's another comment. Yeah.
Sorry, Taps.
No, go on. No, go on, Gary.
No, I think, again, Charlie's mentioned it as well with Buddhism and the factor of desire. Desire is healthy in terms of spirit becoming more and more involved with matter, but that is only part of a long process. And we continually form attachments only for these to be broken time and time again. It's inevitable. Then eventually, the personality as the instrument of the soul tires of this and looks towards higher things. And then that is where desire must be overcome. That is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, which Charlie is speaking about as well. Of course, that is a principal cause of suffering. Again, these things are inherent within the human psyche, but desire is, as I said, it's healthy for the soul getting involved in matter. It's like putting a seed in the soil. But eventually that must be transcended. All of the energies go up to the plant, and talking symbolically, and then the plant flowers. That's actually a wonderful analogy of the evolutionary process.
Yeah, can I just come in there for a moment?
Yeah.
Just to explain myself. Okay, when I use the word desire, people always question it, but I think it's what do we mean by desire? So like Viktor Frankl talked about the will to power and the will to pleasure. So the will to power is basically the attitude of, if I can control everything, then nothing can hurt me. But when you translate the will to power into everyday action, it's aggression. So it's a desire for not wanting to be hurt. And the will to pleasure is, life is so painful, so I'm just going to pursue everything that's pleasurable that I can. But because nothing lasts forever in this plane of duality, there's always a hangover. So Frankl refers to that as addiction. So I'm talking about desire in that sense of trying to control, trying to push away the pain. But he talks about the will to meaning, which is about finding meaning in the experiences that we have, meaning in the suffering that we have to endure so that we can rise above it. And when he talks about a meaning to fulfill, it's always about a goal that is higher than oneself. It's always about service to at least one other person, or service to humanity. But in that sense, rather than what can the world give me, it's what can I give the world? How can I be of service? And so then when you enter a relationship with somebody, and I'm not talking about romantic necessarily, but say in my job as a social worker or psychotherapist, which I'm both, it's what can I give to the person in front of me, or even in this situation, what can I give to the audience? But when you give of yourself, it's like happiness inserts itself. It's difficult to explain, but rather than chasing happiness through desire in that negative sense, it's about what you can give rather than what you're trying to get from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand where you're coming from, Gary. I just wanted to clarify what I meant by desire.
No, sure. In terms of theosophy, we talk of the desires within the astral body and related to the astral plane, and these are centered in the solar plexus chakra. And as a means of overcoming desire, these energies are transmuted into the heart chakra, which is part of what Theosophy calls the Buddhic plane, one of the levels where the soul resides, where everything is inclusive, where we are one, to use simple terms. And that is what we are seeking to do in expressing these heart chakra qualities, like unconditional and inclusive forms of love, rather than selfish or jealous love, empathy, compassion, etc., discrimination between real and the unreal. Then we are accessing these energies of, well, it's a unified field. I'm borrowing a term from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi there, but we are all as one there. And as Schopenhauer illustrated, a human being, if one human being witnesses the life of another human being in danger, they will automatically sacrifice or put at risk their own life to rescue them. And that is another realization of that essential oneness, which, you know, we are all seeking to realize, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, that's beautifully put together. I don't know what happened. Am I audible? Yeah, okay. So there is this question, and it keeps coming back. It's a question on karma. So there are lots of understanding around karma, what it is and everything. And the question that keeps coming back is, how can I resolve negative karma? Now, is there a recipe? Is there a way people can resolve negative karma? What are your thoughts? Anne, would you like to go first?
Yes, please. Thank you. I was just thinking about the commenters as well, Mason and Gian and Stephen. We see you there. Thank you so much. Mason, I wanted to mention to you the thought that you're saying. I was just typing to you really quick. You're talking about trying to get your twin flame out of your head. I'm going to be covering some of that in the mental
magic Saturday. Yeah.
Mental Magic Saturday. We're going to be talking about that very subject in this week's one. So it's come in for that, about switching that negative thought and that obsessive thinking. That will be in Mental Magic number 3. I think this is number 3 coming up, and it's taken off. But the question, talking about the karma as well, I wanted to say, when we were looking at this question here about we bring in our own karma. We come in with lessons from what we understand when we look at these teachings. We come here and nothing happens to us that isn't supposed to be happening to us, though some people will be very angry about that. They're like, how can you justify these children suffering the way that they're suffering? Or how can you, this person was such a good person, they've done nothing wrong, and then they had to experience this horrible, horrible fate. You want to tell me that's what you believe in? I just believe, in my understanding, I'd have to say, I know that there is a law of balance and equilibrium, and it's talked about in our teachings and the teachings of Theosophy, and these ancient teachings, this ancient knowledge talks about balance. So you can't pay off a balance if you don't get to see the whole thing play out. So every time we do incarnate, be it here or any other man-inhabited planet, our story isn't just 60 years, 50 years, 80 years in one go. How could we possibly learn anything in that amount of time? We couldn't. So the balance that's paid off in the karmic debt, sometimes I think everything that we're going through is a balance of karma. And you're learning, you are always learning, and you're learning how to respond. And it's all this test and these really painful lessons that come into being. And sometimes people are just always financially challenged, or they're always emotionally challenged, or they're coming with, I don't know, they could be fraternal twins, or they could be, I don't know, I'm not sure, born with like you have 2 twins that come in and they're completely at odds. To me, that seems like a karmic playing out, a karmic thing. They're faced to be together and they've got to work this out this time, perhaps. or birthmarks, all kinds of things that we come in with are telltale signs of what we were before and what we're playing out now. And to me, paying off the karmic balance is you have to walk through it. There's no escape. You cannot commit suicide and skip class. You cannot pay enough money to have it removed in Glastonbury. You're not going to be able to skirt the issue. We talked about this a little bit, the last gathering circle. There is absolutely no getting out of class. You must walk through it. You must overcome yourself. You must make the right decisions this time. And you've got to be able to grow and evolve and become a better you and make a better choice. And sometimes when it really seems it's completely unfair and it sucks and it hurts and it's hard and you're hurting and it's just awful, remember, this isn't the end. This life isn't all that there is. There's more to it. So we got to walk through it and evolve and be better than we used to be and self-transform through these lessons. I do not think there's any shortcut through them. And I hope that was the answer, or that was actually the question, because I was thinking about lots of different things. Was it close?
No, it was close and it answered the question. There was also another follow-up question. Someone said that, why are we being punished so bad? And then it comes to like, how do we resolve karma? How do we resolve our negative karma? So Gary, Charlie, who wants to go next?
I think it's
your
Charlie's
thoughts
turn to speak.
Charlie's turn. Charlie, your turn.
Well, it is. I was speaking a little while ago.
Can't hear you, Charlie.
Oh, we have a mic issue there. Charlie, if you could, do you want to come in and go back out? I think it's what we did last time and it worked. But really quick, Taps, we'd love to hear from you as well while Charlie's checking his audio. We'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on
I would
karma.
narrate.
Yes, please.
I would narrate a very nice incident. I got a reading from Gary last week, I think, and there was this one thing Gary said to me, like, these are karmic relationships, and the first thought I had is like, how bad karma am I carrying in this whole relationship cycle? And then Gary said that, no, it's not just negative, it's also positive. But the mind just generally goes into the space of like, if it's karma, it must be really bad. And I was like, oh no, So I understand when people write these questions, then how do I resolve this? It's not that I haven't thought of it. I think about that as well.
My spiritual mentor, Douglas Baker, he would say that difficult karma is best resolved through service to humanity, whereas good karma, when the karmic dispensation is good, we look to give it out to others, but if it's difficult, we look to serve. I think is Charlie's mic up and running now?
Yeah. Nope.
But
can't hear you.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Charlie? Oh, no.
No.
Gremlins.
No, it's just not fair. We need you, Charlie. Please come back to us. Come back to us. Lip reading. Lip reading that. Can you charades?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, I tell you what, while he does some of that, to see if we can bring him back in. The reading that she talked about, that Taps is talking about with Gary. Gary is an esoteric astrologer, and he is amazing. And I've had a reading from him. Lyndon has as well. Taps just had one too. We can talk about that for a moment if you'd like. And the reading.
And I think it was absolutely fascinating. It was completely fascinating. I was just listening because I think I can hear Charlie.
Testing.
There he's back.
Yes.
He's back.
Yes. Go.
Carry on.
Oh, I was just talking about this reading I've had with Gary, because he's, and I was like, he's so precise, and it's just amazing. It helps you so much. Like, it helped me a lot to understand. And I've had this crazy thing because, like, I told Gary that I always felt this very weird, like this weird person who's like half into spirituality, half into material world. I don't know what to do, how to balance, and like juggling all the time. Am I really weird? And so it was quite nice and quite like refreshing to talk to someone who understands, and he's absolutely, he's very accurate and very precise. So thank you, Gary.
My pleasure, Tats. Thank you.
And we're going to put the link down below. So if you want to get a reading from Gary, he's ridiculously affordable, so much so that I don't know how he survives, but he does. And he's read for 3 of us so far. And it was just something, it was interesting. The only reason I asked him is because we had the same birthday, and he mentioned a couple things, the birth date, in the year, and I thought that's interesting. So I thought, why not? Because I'm not into the reading things, but it's the way that he does it. He's an esoteric astrologer, and it's really affordable and
it's a guidance. It's also like a guidance. It's like a personal guidance. Like like with Gary, I could tell him like these are the things that that I struggle with, and he understands it because it shows up in the chart. I wouldn't know that it's showing up on the chart, so it's kind of nice. So that's what I'm born with, which is why the karma thing came in. It's like I'm like, oh, what kind of karma am I carrying? But but yeah, we'll get through that.
And that's true. One more thing on that. There was a couple things in the reading that we did as well. He said, this is a very big karmic exclamation point, which really explained the unexplainable to me. And I was very grateful for that. So it's soul-centeredastrology.com, soul-centered-astrology.com. Correct, Gary? I'm doing that from memory.
Yes, well, thank you.
Okay. And then I would say, seriously, very affordable. And he is in Scotland. So he's in British summertime. But I will go ahead and I'll let you go back to
Charlie.
Now that we've got Charlie back. Yeah, go ahead.
On karma.
Thank you. I feel so at home here. Can we do this? Can we do this every day? No.
Of course.
Yeah, karma means action. So for every action, science tells us there's a reaction. So there's all these actions and reactions going on, and so on and so forth, and it's a big complex web. Now, when you talk about people coming in with lives and choosing their fate, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I don't personally buy it so much. I think my understanding is that we co-create, and that the contract can change. And that's difficult to explain, but that would be my experience, because I've been on a path at certain times and I've said, don't want this path anymore, and then I'm on another path which is more in alignment with where I want to go. So if someone comes into a very violent upbringing, and like I've been through that myself, I would never choose that. I could never imagine choosing that. But on the other hand, again, I come back to Viktor Frankl, whatever experience we go through, whatever pain we go through, whatever suffering we go through, those experiences are our teachers. That's the way I understand it. Mm-hmm. I mean, as a lived reality, I understand it. So, I mean, if I had never suffered, I would never probably understand the need for compassion so much. Mm-hmm. If I'd never been through homelessness, I wouldn't know possibly what someone who is homeless is going through. Like when I used to teach in university to social work students, I used to say, my first question to them was, at the start of the module was, if you take a 20-year-old guy who's just become homeless and blah, 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 what's his life going to turn out like by the time he's in his mid-40s? So they always painted a very grim picture for that person. And then my second question was, did you ever think he would end up teaching you in university?
Oh.
So that kind of got their attention. But my point was, when you see someone who is in certain circumstances, don't assume that is them. Don't assume the person is an addict. Don't assume they are a homeless person. Don't assume they are a mental health patient. I don't like the term patient for mental health, but anyway, that's a different story. But they are a human being who has an experience, and despite having something, they are still someone, and that potential to fulfill is still there within them. So I told the students, you have a responsibility to help awaken that potential within them. Mm-hmm. So no matter what we go through, I have this conviction that experience is a teacher, and that if we can check what the lesson is, we can rise above it.
Yeah, well said. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very beautiful.
Powerful. I like what you said also, Charlie, about the co-creative aspect. Theosophy borrows or takes its writings on karma from the early Indian teachings, and they talk of three basic types of karma. There's the pool of karma, which is accumulated over one's lives, over one's many lives. There is an aspect of that which the soul chooses to work off in the particular life which is ahead. And there's also the karma which one is creating in that same life. But these can change depending on the life that one is leading. And the more one becomes attuned to the soul, the more one serves, then the more the karmic scales get balanced out. The other thing with karma, we'd have to say, again, my mentor Douglas Baker in his book, Jewel in the Lotus, said it is such a complex subject. Even what Theosophy calls a master couldn't discourse entirely accurately on it, because there's our own karma, there's family, there's national, there's planetary, and so on. It is an immense subject, and it's certainly, I think, very immature to point the finger at someone who's perhaps suffering, or a nation that's suffering. That, in my opinion, portrays an ignorance of higher things. And again, with the heart chakra, I mean, I live in Dundee. We have a high incidence of homelessness. And I think the key is to say to oneself, but for the grace of God, go I.
Yes.
Because it can happen to anyone. It really can. I actually have a friend who actually worked in a homeless shelter, and he told me, you would be astounded at the different types of people that are rendered homeless. It's not what, the common idea that it's self-inflicted. He said, no. It's a whole spectrum of society that can happen to as well. But like any form of difficulty or suffering, compassion is the key. And I think it's a stain on humanity to see homelessness. It's a real stain on our capitalist society. It's telling us, a bit like with environmental issues, it's telling us something is wrong and we need to act upon
it. Well, if you think about it right now, just the name homeless, the word homeless, automatically you assume it has a stigma attached to it, and it's not fair. I don't understand why, and I've been homeless. I don't understand why we are still like that. We still are very ignorant and very selfish and self-focused, and we have no idea what their stories are, what everybody's story. No one knew my story. We don't know what is going on, but we still prejudge. At least it's not me. Thank God, blah, blah, blah. And I have all my stuff. But the thing is, we're on this planet together. We are on the planet together. We are each other. We are Earth. I don't understand how we're not further along. And I do get frustrated sometimes here on Living Theosophy. I just don't understand, like, why are we not all in this together, and this empathetic feeling of crushing compassion and a responsibility. I can feel it even when Gary was talking about it. Everybody's like, oh, well, if they weren't drinking, then they wouldn't be blah, blah, blah. Well, you know why they're drinking? A lot of people drink. And I'm 19 years sober now. The reason I drank to almost oblivion until I was a spirit of myself is because life here on Earth is a painful place to be. And it gave me a 20-minute reprieve from the madness, from the suffering. A majority of the people drink and use to be able to stop the pain or to feel nothing at all. And then that leads into a spiral. And there's the domestic violence that Charlie is very compassionate about, helping with that. It's all tied in together. Look at the jails, the institutions. It's full of people that are suffering, and they are suffering. We can do something about the cause. These are the effects. This channel is focused on getting these teachings out into the world. So hopefully, whoever comes across it, you'll be able to use them and help treat the cause. It's not just this channel, though. There's lots of ways to find these instructions on how to live. You don't have to live that way. And there is hope and there is help. And it doesn't have to be painful, and it doesn't have to be cruel. And that compassion is such a key. So yeah, it's an understanding. I do believe it would help people. It would help. And when you lift your own self up, you are easing the unnecessary karma of the consciousness around you. You change yourself. you affect everybody around you. So it's important that you do get to work. That's what I think.
Very well said, Anne. Very well put. And that ties in very nicely to the next segment of questions that I have, where somebody says that HPB was a prolific writer who created Theosophy to synthesize religion, philosophy, and science. Awesome woman. So some people really praising HPB and, are in for Theosophy. On the other hand, there are people writing in who say, do not buy any of this stuff. And they are literally like, this is elite gibberish, communists mantra garbage. So those are the kind of comments that come in, and it's pure evil. Whatever is being said is pure evil. Whatever Theosophy, it's like a cult, it's like a religion, it's like this, really confined zone, and then not everyone has to follow HPB. But it's not about following HPB. It's about Theosophy. Yeah. It's about. So what are your thoughts? So let's go over the Zoom room. Whoever wants to pick on that first.
Gary?
Okay.
Gary.
Regarding the communist mantra, all true spiritual teaching, that is real, genuine communism on the basis we are all from the same source. We're all here to learn and grow. We're part of the planetary consciousness. Let's make it work. That is not the communism of Russia or the Eastern Bloc, where you have authoritarian dictators. True communism would only work if the human condition were, of course, greatly uplifted. My own view, I am very centrist in terms of politics, but to me, the idea of communism came at least a good few hundred years too early. But I feel, in essence, we are all part of the same source. It gets back also to what Charlie was talking about. The main problem with that is who's going to control it all. And then we have the will, etc., which gets in the way. But we're all free to pursue our own spiritual teachings, develop and grow existentially, but always bearing in mind we are part of the collective. We're always one, where we each have a unique spiritual path to follow, and we choose whatever method I think is right for us. I couldn't care less which method someone chose if it connected them with their soul, because that's part of evolution. But I do think Theosophy presents a wonderful paradigm, and it creates, which Blavatsky said, the synthesis of religion, science, and philosophy. And I feel it can regenerate the existing world religions, help create new ones, and provide an advance point for science as well.
Yes.
Thank you. That's fairly accurate. That is accurate.
At least we think so.
At least we think so. Yeah, that's true. Charlie, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're up slightly, yeah.
Okay, well, I suppose I think Blavatsky was awesome, and the political communism of the Eastern Bloc didn't exist. She was around in the 1800s. So, and I find it interesting that people who are so critical of Blavatsky and the work that this channel is doing still listen to it. I hope they're getting something interesting from it if they bother to listen to it. But if I'm not interested, I just don't listen. We're not going to convince ourselves of one thing or other. I had a cousin, she died in 2014, but she was one of the kindest people I ever knew. Since I was a small toddler, I remember her and always loved her company. She was a born-again Christian, and she used to preach to thousands of people. And she felt compelled to ask me every time we met, do you want to hear about Jesus? And I would say, I know you feel the need to ask me that question, but I don't want to know. And if I ever do want to know, I'll tell you, but let's go have some fun. And then she'd go, okay. And we would have a lovely time then, just talking about life and fun things. But we're not going to persuade anyone to change their beliefs, nor will anyone persuade us to change ours. I mean, if there is a better way, show me that way. Live it, do it. And if it's inspiring enough, maybe I'll try and imitate your good behavior and your inspirational behavior.
Mm.
But I don't want to argue with anyone about what they believe or don't believe.
Mm.
Best way, I believe that's the best way, because then you get into these endless debates. It's always, and this thing that I've seen mostly on this channel on Living Theosophy is that people want to say that what they are doing is the best, like what I'm doing is the best, what you're doing is not the best. Like it's always this comparison mode that people in general are. And I don't know why we need to compare, because we're all like, the end mission is the same, the end goal is the same, we are all like connected, we are all one. But I don't know this kind of divide that goes through the whole population. It's like, I just know what's best, you just don't know. And I'm like, fair enough.
It's got to be human nature. Human nature, it's got to be, because we're doing just what, I mean, any other organized, the religions, they all do it. Ours is best, yours is wrong, you're all going to hell, ours is best. And even in smaller groups, oh my God, even in the Theosophical groups, oh my God, they're not doing it right, but we have it doing it right. So here.
Yeah.
So I think it's a human thing, and I'm not sure why it's like that. But that is something that we'd like to, if you're watching this right now, thank you, by the way. Next, what we're doing is once a month, we're just meeting so we can talk about different things. We're bringing in some comments and questions that have come in on TikTok and on YouTube, but you're certainly welcome. Oh, Paul is here.
Yeah, he has a question.
Yeah.
His question is, how to live has been dictated by the evil controlling our world, whose narrative is anti-love and divide and conquer, soon to be removed by the awakening. So that's a comment. It's quite nice, very powerful.
Thank you, Paul, for being here. Paul is local, actually. He's a local here in Brixham. I didn't realize he's over here. Well done, Paul. Thank you. What we'd like to be able to take your comments, your questions, especially if you're thinking, what is this? I'd like to learn more. We, again, as we said before, are simply students. We just study and apply and try to become these teachings to the best of our ability, and without having to join anywhere or follow anybody or be somewhere in a physical location. You could just come on here and talk to other people that are doing the same thing you are. That's it. That's all we're doing these for. So there's a place to gather. And so we're calling them gathering circles. And so we're just trying to test the waters and see how it's working. So what we have is this, it's not a panel, it's just a group of friends that are just sharing our thoughts. None of us are absolutely right. None of us are trying to convince you that you need to think like us. I'm learning stuff from my friends tonight, and I'm learning stuff from you in your comments. I learn always from you, especially you. Anyway, if you do have something you'd like to mention, or if you had a question about something, please mention it now while we're here, and we'll be here every last Wednesday of the month. So I'll hand it back to you, Tabs.
I have a question. This came from this lovely individual who thanked you, Anne, for explaining things very clearly to her or him. I don't know. I'm just going to say her just for simplicity. And there was this question that, can you please connect me to teachings about original sin, fighting off demonic strongholds, redemption as to how to be forgiven and avoid hell, as well as, well, we have we've spoken about karma, but are there any teachings that as somebody could just go and pick up and read if someone is interested in or listening to us today?
About hell in general? Or
about hell, about sin, fighting off demonic strongholds, redemption as to how to be forgiven, and avoiding hell.
I would refer that to Gary about the astral realm. A lot of times, a lot of the, just because we do attribute evil to an entity outside of us, and there are entities and there are beings outside and consciousness outside of the physical self. But to me, my understanding is that evil is an interior choice by man. Evil is man. Man is the darkness is man, and the goodness is man as well. It's inside of us. But in the astral world, with our thoughts and emotions, it's a very powerful thing, the way that we're thinking and what we're doing. And the astral world, when they talk about these entities coming in, I'm not an expert in that, but I know Gary has some experience with the the astral energies and entities. Do you know of any texts, Gary, or you, if you'd like to, Charlie, anything that you have on that? Because I definitely want to stay away from the religious view of that, but the scientific, the ancient scientific way, I wouldn't say I know.
I'll make a basic comment. And original sin, is that referring to the karma of humanity? A transcendent principle has put us into manifestation so we can unfold latent spiritual qualities. There's been an awful lot of bumps upon the way in terms of what Charlie was saying about action and reaction. Demonic, yes, there are low-grade astral entities, but we also possess these propensities within the psyche, what the transpersonal psychologist Robert Assagioli described as the lower unconscious, which relates to the lower astral world. And if we, well, that is the Freudian id, amongst other things, this propensity for power and control, and I must satiate my desires, whatever they may be, at the expense of whoever else. And when we vibrate at that frequency, we can attract we're dealing in low-grade astral energy, and we are attracting such beings into our aura. But I mean, in terms of all this and redemption, any text which is teaching one to come from the heart and to work on themselves and to serve humanity and realize the essential oneness of life, that is redemption. If you want to look at life from a Christian way, absolutely fine, but not to get caught up in these concepts and see them as absolutes. Try to have a perspective upon these and realize that Jesus Christ was a great avatar who taught great ways of spiritual development. These were distorted. Again, it was the urge to power by various religious practitioners and emperors and so on. It's not the fault of Jesus any more than Hitler's concept of Aryans and Madame Blavatsky. You can distort anything. I'm digressing slightly. I can't think of an actual text that I would have to say. Jeffrey Hodgson wrote one on Theosophy and the Bible. That might be a good start if you wanted to look at the two of these. But any form of modern transpersonal psychology, I think, will help deal with this. If you have to make this practical, not just intellectualize over it, and think you'll see a lot of good techniques there. Maybe Charlie would like to say something about that. That's more his domain than mine, but very practical.
Not too familiar with transpersonal psychology, to be honest.
Oh.
Oh, you caught me out there. I mean, perfect. No, I had this experience years ago. I was working in hospice, and there was a man who was dying. He was in his final days, and he was a Catholic, and he was worried about meeting God. He was thinking of.
Hold that thought, Charlie. I'm so sorry. It's just really difficult to hear you. Would it be possible for you to just over enunciate maybe just a little bit?
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I forget I'm not talking to a local.
That's okay.
Sometimes I can understand my accent.
I just
Sorry, world. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Okay. No, years ago I was working in hospice, and I shouldn't be laughing now. No, this man was dying, and he was worried about meeting God because he was of Catholic background. So he wasn't a bad guy, but he started listing the mistakes he had made in his life and the regrets that he had. And I said to him, whatever God you believe designed you, did not design you to be perfect. You were designed to make mistakes. You were designed to mess up. It's not your fault. And what you can do is just try and learn from what you've been through, try and learn from the mistakes, try and do better. Okay? So I don't buy into the religious codes or religious doctrines. Peter Panagore, who he was a preacher for years, but he has no religion. that makes any sense. He has no belief, he has no faith. He knows what he knows because in his 2 near-death experiences, he says he's been in the presence of God, and he says that God told him that whatever imperfections we have as human beings, it's not our fault. But we do have the responsibility to try our best and to do our best and to learn from our mistakes and to try and make the world a better place. And I'm in a similar position as I was a month ago, where I'm answering the question and I can't remember what the question was.
The question is about any text that exists around original sins and how to resolve this conflict of karma, and any text that you're aware of, which is not religious though, because this person really fears these religious doctrines.
I will say though that on this channel, the very first text that led me into Theosophy, and Lyndon as well, and many others, were the 14 lessons in yogi philosophy and Oriental occultism. I know it's a big mouthful, but then that pointed towards Light on the Path, which is a it's a short book. But it's really, the more you visit it, the more it reveals, and it's a theosophical classic that also then points towards Voice of the Silence. They're on here as well as free audiobooks if you want to. It's Voice of the Silence, Light on the Path. They're great places to start. And although they may not be talking directly about original sin, in a way they kind of do, because they talk about everything. And it's just a way in, and it's kind of a, I don't want to say it's because it isn't like a way to learn it in an academic textbook. You can't read it like that and then go over here. It's literally a way of digesting, applying, spending time with, and a gentle understanding, and then a revisiting. I think Charlie's been reading Voice of the Silence for 30 years, isn't it? 30? There it is.
30 years.
30 years. And every time it's something new. So if you want to, those books, I'll put a link to them down below. They'll be free as PDFs. But I'll also, if remind you, take a look on this channel. Voice of the Silence is there for you to listen to if you want to. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. Just listen to it. And it explains literally everything, and in a gentle way, in an ancient way, but also a very modern way of understanding. It's really quite remarkable. These texts are very important and sacred, and they're here now. They're instructions for humanity, in my understanding. But they're on this channel if you want it as audiobooks as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. I think it's 8 o'clock, and so we've just completed an hour chatting in the gathering circle. So thank you. Thank you, Gary, Charlie, Anne, for all your inputs and for this beautiful time together. And I'll hand it back to you, Anne. Before I do that, please like and share and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon for an update of whenever a new video is uploaded. All yours, Anne.
Bless you. Thank you, Tabs. Thank you. We will be doing these gathering circles. We're really finding our feet. And I know there is an issue with Charlie's microphone. We have something going on there. We have some folks saying they want to hear you, but they can't hear you. So we're working to go ahead and fine tune things, all kinds of stuff. Believe me, we're doing trial and error, and we're doing these once a month on Wednesdays. And we're just trying to do the best we can. We're a gathering of fellow like-minded individuals. Not all of us will sit there and say, you have to belong to this lodge, you have to join this. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just have a compassionate heart and want to be better than you were the day before. That's it. And try to help. If you feel this responsibility, this empathic to do something to help this world, to be a better place to live in, to help ease the unnecessary suffering of all beings. That's why I'm here. And I believe in it so much that this is what we do now full time. And we're very grateful to have you here. Thank you so much, dear Gary and Charlie and Taps, and all of you for being here in the comment section. If you'd like us to discuss something next gathering circle, please drop us a line. We have more things coming up, like the Theosophy for the Young, the Ancient Teachings for the Young. That happens middle of the month with Kathy Gann. There's lots of things. The Mental Magic series on Saturday nights, the latent powers in humanity. That's what a lot of people want to know, is that latent power and the hidden or unexplained laws of nature. We talk about that on Saturday nights. So it's all here on the Living Theosophy channel, and you're all a part of it. And we love you. And thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, guys. I love you.
Thank you all.
There he is. This is Charlie. We love you.
Now you can hear me.
Yes, we can. We can now. What happened? Did you plug it in? What happened?
I did nothing.
Oh my gosh, we can totally hear you. Well, is there anything you'd like to say? Ravenheart, wait, Ravenheart really wanted to hear you and they can't hear you. Would you like to say something to Ravenheart? Oh, that sounds great. Thank you. Thank you.
I think there's a question by Paul, which is, do you think that love and understanding of one another in everything we see should be taught by parents and schools?
Yes. Well, very good point. Yes, please. And thank you for being here. All of you who have watched us grow and evolve. Things are getting very busy here. And this is just one of many little platforms that are using the modern technology to get these teachings out into the world. So we're grateful. And we're just fellow students. None of us are teachers. You don't have to follow anybody. There's never any money due. And all the books are free. So we're going to put the books down below. Except for Gary's. Gary's are available on his website. They're very worth it. But also, and that is soulcenteredastrology.com. And he's not asking for much, but also if you're looking to get a reading, an esoteric astrology reading from Gary, I'll put that link down below as well. So I love you guys. Have a good night. I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Hang on. I've got to close that on my end again. It's me. I keep waiting. Someone else, it's me. Okay. Bye, everybody.